How are you?
Oh my God, man. That's a complex question.
You look great. I haven't
You
seen you in
too.
forever.
You
Oh my
too.
God.
I could use a haircut big time.
I'm not really camera ready. Let me see. Is this shirt right?
You look gorgeous. Beautiful
I
as
don't
ever,
know.
sir.
Hold on. Let me get it together.
Okay.
I'm just, you know what I'm saying? It's TV.
Powder your nose.
I know, it's TV, so if you don't look good, what's the point?
Yeah, see, you look fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, man. All right. Pardon my fidgeting. It's good.
All right, listen, I want to talk about the company, about our collaboration together, and then about everything that's happened in the last couple of months.
Sure.
Had some dicey connection issues in this office here, so for any reason I lose you, I'll just run to another room and log right back on.
I love your backdrop.
See, you like that? It's just a blue my bed.
I love it.
Low budget basement of a house productions. What can I tell you?
Hey man, that's what we all are. Little baby networks.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
But I like the way it frames you.
See? There you go. I got hair and I got blue. I'm not quite a blue hair just yet. I'm gray. I'm silver.
Right. Sexy,
but I'm blue behind me.
Sexy blue. Sexy gray.
There you go. There you go. Talk to me about your first exposure to stepping. Were you a child? Was it at church? How did you get introduced to this genre?
We're recording now?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're on.
We're on, absolutely.
Dang, man. Well, I think I first saw stepping when I walked on campus at Howard University.
Got it.
That was my first introduction to the form. Stepping Step Afrika defines stepping as a percussive, polyrhythmic art form created by African-American college students. And these were college students who became members of fraternities and sororities. And so when I first saw it, which is in probably, I'd say, the mid-'80s, I couldn't believe it when I first saw the tradition. It's a tradition that's been passed down for about almost 100 years when I first, maybe about 80 years when I first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hooked ever since.
What are the origins of stepping?
Well, that's a great question because it's not the best researched tradition, but I'll tell you a little bit of a story. So stepping, African Americans began to, especially this time, it's good for us to know other histories about other cultures. Let's talk a little bit about African American history. African Americans, of course, Emancipation Proclamation happens in 1865. It's not really executed until around 1863. 1865 is really executed. And then you start to see during the Reconstruction era in America, which is such an understudied part of American history, college and universities start popping up, right? In the South, right? To teach and provide a skill base emancipated, which is such a huge moment. African Americans began to attend colleges. They went to Cornell, they went to other colleges around the world. And in fact, when they got to those colleges, man, they saw that they couldn't really fully participate in student life. So they had to create their own organizations to support themselves both academically and socially, while in with kind of hostile environments, even post-emancipation and post-Reconstruction during Jim Crow and part of American history.
Right.
Fraternity, which is Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, is the very first fraternity created for African American men in 1906 on the campus of Cornell in Ithaca, New York.
Wow.
That's the beginning of the African American fraternalism. One of the beginnings. There's actually another fraternity that came before that, but this is the one that is mostly associated with the tradition of stepping. And since then, just for your audience, there are now 9 historically Black fraternities and sororities, all most founded between 1906 and 1922. There's one exception, one outlier. And these are the places where the art form of stepping was first developed.
Awesome.
Let's just go so much further in it, but I think that's another session.
No, I appreciate that you're sketching that out for me. What about you? I mean, because Step Afrika is the only professional stepping company. When did you transition and you realize you're studying whatever was your major at Howard, and you're like, you know what? This is going to be my life, this art form. Talk about that.
Well, we're not the only. We're the first. And we're the first to be able to provide full-time work or employment to artists around this tradition. So we've been doing this for 25 years,
Wow.
20 plus years now, I know.
Jeez.
And I have
You're way too young. You're way too young.
I'm way too young. I
You have
started
been doing anything for 25 years.
when I was 2 years old, I started.
There you go.
But so, so for me, it was an interesting choice because how do you take a folkloric tradition? I mean, really, all dance starts as folkloric. Ballet is folkloric when you really think
Right.
It became classical, quote unquote, but started off as the dance of a people, of a culture, of a tradition. Stepping, the same thing. It's a traditional folkloric dance style created for a certain ritual or purpose in the community. And Step Afrika's charge has been to take it to the professional stage. And it's been my honor, I think, to take the art form to over 60 countries around the world, every state in the union, all from our base here in Washington, D.C., and to provide full-time employment to artists of color. And in this moment right now, that's really important because, you know, we have to, it's about independent organizations of color that can tell stories in their own way and still collaborate from a position of strength, which is what I think we were able to do when we worked together.
Exactly. I mean, it's funny that you should use that exact phrase, tell stories, because that's sort of where my mind is at these days in terms of the life of my 3 symphonies. We need to solicit more stories from places not Europe.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. And I want to talk more about that, how to make that a permanent part of our infrastructure. But with regard to our collaboration, I've told this story 1,000 times. I saw an article about you guys in a dance magazine, went online, Googled you guys and found some video. I'm like, oh my God, this is a whole dance vocabulary. I had no idea. What was your reaction? Really, you can be honest with me. Like,
oh man,
got that email. We're like, what?
I should have found that email.
Fleischer?
I should have looked for that email before you had. I mean, you know what? I've always been so excited and open to collaboration.
That's great.
And because I've been that way, great opportunity has come. So when I saw your email, I mean, you know, I think I responded like lickety split, like, let's go.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
And we dived right into the conversation. And I think,
we did.
You know, it's amazing what an email can do and what a small connection, what it can turn into. I mean, that really opened us up to new collaborations and new artistic possibilities that we would not have considered beforehand. And I know I did this for you as well.
Absolutely. When you guys got on a plane to come to Anchorage, Alaska,
yes.
What was the company's move? What were they thinking? Were they like, how is this going to be? I mean, dancing in an igloo somewhere. How is this going to work? Were you guys apprehensive? Were you excited? Take me there.
Let me tell you, I think that Alaska remains one of our favorite. We've been all over the world. Alaska, for some reason, my company, Step Afrika in particular, loves being in Alaska.
So do I.
Every opportunity we can get, go to Alaska, perform in Alaska. And we've performed it, I think, 3 or 4 times out at this point. I love it. So we had such a good time there. It was such a warm reception from the community. And it was a warm reception on the stage and the space. It was really, I really felt like we were all just trying to do something. And they were just trying to do something new and take our audiences on a new journey. And isn't that what the theater's supposed to be about?
No question.
Shared space for us to try something. And so we tried. I remember working with your lighting designer. I love her, trying to come up with some ideas for that because it was all new. And it was a warm, wonderful environment. I really thank for your leadership and to your players for taking the risk, because I know that's not always the case.
No. Well, I mean, I've been there 21 seasons, and I mean, I'm going to do that job until they boot me out.
Yeah.
My reaction was exactly the same about Alaska. I love Alaska. I love Anchorage. I love this organization, the people that work in it. Talk to me about how you identify, recruit, hire, audition
Yeah.
dancers for the company?
Well, as a professional company, we have we're one of the largest African-American dance companies in the world today, which is crazy. And in Washington, D.C., we're one of the largest dance companies, period, of any background. In fact, we're probably the second biggest. The biggest is the Washington Ballet, who I love. Right. And then we're like right behind them in terms of size and scope, in terms of the outreach. So we have professional artists who we audition every year here in Washington, D.C. Normally we would do it in May. We sadly had to cancel our auditions this year, right? But, we recruit people who love this art form of stepping, but also have other skills as well we want to bring into the company. And that's allowed us to do a variety of works that if we were only focused on the art form of stepping, this percussive dance form of stepping, we couldn't do. So we have a really broad range of works in the company's repertoire.
I remember when you came to Anchorage, there was one dancer with a particularly strong background in ballet. There was
yes.
And then there was somebody else who had a strong background in breakdancing and such like that. But I mean, what's the audition process? Do they just learn a combination and you pick? Is there an interview? What are the other requirements?
All of that and the above. I mean, it's a 2-day process, audition process. The artists come in and they first we start off with the foundation of the company, which is stepping. So we want to prove that we have a good vocabulary in that art form. Then we go into traditional South African dance movement, because what that shows us is a range of movement. That's where we see people have ballet skills, modern skills, or traditional West African dance skills, because we can see that they have a broader vocabulary, movement vocabulary. And then, to your point about the other skills, we always have a section where we do special skills, where we allow the artists to show us what else they do, right? What else they love to do. And that's where the real power is, because that's where we start to say, oh, that kind of sparks ideas, and the possibilities of collaboration within the company become even more possible.
How does that work? Because, I mean, obviously you've got a group of artists, they all have strong opinions, but I mean, is Jakari still with the company?
Jakari is still with the company. He's not permanent with the company. He's not a full-time employee, but he's one of our lead artistic consultants. In fact, he just directed our newest work, Drum Folk, that we were touring all over the country and getting ready to just be amazing until COVID-19.
Yeah, awesome. Tell him I said hello, or anybody who's in the company.
I will.
What do members of the company get to choreograph? Do they get to present ideas and say, what about this? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very open, collaborative process. Invariably, any work that we create will require the input and contributions of our artists, because we build works around them. So we have over maybe 50 new works that we've created, and maybe more than that in our repertoire, and probably more than that, and maybe 9 feature-length productions that we've created along the way. And all the artists have always been involved in that, to some degree, some more than others. You always have some artistic staff or participation from others who really get into the process of creating new work. It's not everybody's, purview to make work, but we encourage it, and we encourage the development of new emerging voices for the stage.
And do you curate that? I mean, does the buck stop with you at the end?
Heavily.
Yeah. It's got to be somebody.
Heavily and aggressively.
You know what? Honest to God, I think that's what really sparks creativity, when you send some clear boundaries. Here's what you got to do. I will decide, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Go.
And for the creative process, since sometimes I set no boundaries, and then I start to, I give you room for the voice, and then I come in and get pretty aggressive on the edit. For me, it's always the power of the edit, even in our work. Remember, we would say, okay, this works. You respond, then we respond, then how can we make it better? Because that's when you have that conversation. And if you're not open to that process, then it's I don't know. I mean, then you might as well not collaborate, because you have to be open to the back and forth, and that's where the power is. I think that's where
no question. That's the juice of what ends up the content of the piece.
Right.
That intense collaboration. Everybody's kind of invested is what it boils down to.
Right.
I mean, with a pathway toward decision making that's clear to everyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is.
I mean, at some point it has to stop, right? At some point you have to go,
Right.
we're good.
It's showtime.
You know,
Gotta make a
and
decision.
that's why the showtime is so important, because we know it has an end. But up until that point, my job is I want to just go as I want to do everything possible to create the most wonderful experience for our audience. And so I'll never forget the response of that audience in Alaska after we viewed that project. And
yeah,
it was a very warm, enthusiastic, rousing. I mean, am I right?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Absolutely. What was my next question? Yeah. Do you invite specific guest choreographers from outside the genre of stepping to come into the company?
Rarely, but we do. I mean, a lot of our choreography is built from the inside, but I would say maybe about 10 to 15% of our work sometime come from outside collaborators, you know, that either I've discovered or found we're looking for a particular movement vocabulary or particular experience, you know, that doesn't exist within the company at that time. Like, I'll tell you, for example, our new work, Drum Folk, that we can't wait to get back on the road again. And for those who are watching, we're going to be doing a video around Drum Folk on September 9th. We're creating a new dance on film experience. So you get a chance to see some of our work on the video. And I'm really excited about that. But we got this wonderful choreographer named Julio Atao from Angola, who taught us some traditional Angolan movement. And you know, you don't get a chance to see that kind of movement. And the percussive arrangements, you would love this percussion. It's
fantastic.
So, man, it's like, when I hear it in the show, I just like you're transported to another place. It's so beautiful. And so the music with the movement, we had this artist come in and set the work on us, and I love it. So I want to do more of that in the future.
Awesome. Let's talk about the last couple of months, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is a genuine watershed moment? Do you think there's a possibility of this actually being a tipping point, or is it a lot of hot air and it's all going to blow over and go back to the status quo?
I don't think will be a status quo. I think that's over. And I'm actually really excited about that, because I don't want to go back to the status quo.
Who does? I shouldn't say that. I can identify.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people do.
Yeah.
Some people do, you know,
Yeah.
and okay, but I think a lot of people don't. And so it's going to be an interesting opportunity to see what's next. I mean, I can't wait. I have no idea what to expect. But if we come out of this with a little more aggressive dismantling of historically racist structures, if we come out of this with better opportunities for all Americans to live, breathe, and create without this kind of invisible knee on your neck, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
This is gonna be great, because you know, when you have your knee on someone's neck, either as in the sad case of George Floyd, I mean, you're not just holding back the person, you are also perpetually holding back yourself. You know, and I think we've missed out on a lot of great, beautiful wisdom and talent in our native and our communities of color that just can't see the light in this structure. So I want to bring them out, and let's see how great we can be. I can't wait, man.
That's wonderful. I so appreciate your optimism. In that process, as we do this, what's the role of the artist in your mind?
I think the role of the artist is just to create and to reflect, and to give us room to reflect and to inspire and to remind us. You know, I think sometimes the theater is like is another classroom. You know, where can we demonstrate one thing, and we all artists have their own use of the theater, of the space, right?
Right.
For me in particular, I love the theater as a shared space, as to show what we can do when we share space together, and how we can all gather from all walks of life, it doesn't really matter, and have a wonderful shared humanity or shared experience.
It's so intense that you're saying that, because it's funny, because for me, my whole life, on a certain level, I mean, it has truly been difficult and painful to not be out conducting, but it's given me pause. And for me, I've really been drawn to music for the content. And I have certainly understood the divine communication that exists between artists. I spend my life looking into the eyes of fellow musicians and pulling humanity out of them in their playing. That I'm aware of. But I must tell you, and it's so interesting that you bring this up, the shared experience. And 35 years bowing, then I turn my back on the audience and my focus is entirely in front of me, and that shared experience.
Right.
But what I'm missing is how social and communal the arts are. It is a meeting place. It is content. It's humans meeting other humans. It's almost as important when somebody comes to Step Afrika that they see their friends there as that they absorb the content of the show.
Right.
Do you agree?
We do that together, and then we have and where we go with that, and then I wish that we could bring more into that environment. You know, that's what I loved about the Symphony of Step is that I felt that we were bringing two worlds together, and we were trying as much as we can to honor both worlds. We were going to share the space.
Yep.
You weren't asking us to be something we were not. We were not asking you to be something you were not.
Right.
Let's discover how together we can still, even though we're very different in terms of, you play the cello, I use my body as an instrument. We're very different, but we can share the space and create something more. And
we found the entry.
It's so revolutionary.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, maybe it's a little self-congratulatory, but I think, historically artists tend to more lead the way in these ways. But it's exactly true what you're saying. You didn't change what you did. We didn't change what we did. And yet we both found the overlap. We found the entry point. We found a way to put these two genres that had never been put together, and audiences loved it.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Because I think it was very authentic.
It was totally authentic. Everything about it was authentic.
I'm gonna tell you, I'll never forget, that collaboration led us to do another project.
Right.
The Swinging Nutcracker.
Yeah.
And we had already had the experience of working with you as a symphony and several of your wonderful symphonies across the country. And we're able to work with the Atlanta Symphony. That was amazing. The Atlanta Community Symphony. So it was a smaller orchestra.
Right, exactly.
And, just really do these wonderful works. And what I think is that, but there's still room to be done. There's still work to be done in terms of how to really share space, Not everyone's willing to share space. I remember for one symphony in particular we were working with was very resistant, right, to how close we could be to the violinist, or how, there's almost like this fear, like you might step on my 150-year-old thing.
Right.
And I feel like those kind of things keep us apart. And so how can we all figure out that there's a respect for the shared space and really come together? Everybody, we have to just do more of that. Less fear, more willing to try.
No question. Talk to me about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it is specifically an African-American thing? Is it a universal thing about discrimination of all kinds? Is it both? What really is the essence and the heart?
So I'm a student of African-American history. I love African-American history. Where's my book? Oh, I don't have my books. I have so many books on African-American history. I'm always reading about it. I'm always consuming it. I'm a donor. If any of your audience have not been to the wonderful National Museum of African-American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., it's the largest museum of its kind dedicated to African-American history and culture. It's stunning, and it tells our story, which is a distinct American story in ways that haven't been told. So all that to say, because I've been studying African-American history for some time, when I look at the Black Lives Matter movement, I would say to your audience, this is just my opinion, you know, look, clearly not a monolith. They're like, just like in all communities, there are too many opinions, right? But for me, the Black Lives Matter movement is a very important statement in American history because I do feel personally, based on my reading and based on my experience, that Black life in America has not been valued. It has been devalued. It has been disrespected, and it has definitely been underinvested. And it's not me saying that, it's the history. If I look at the history of slavery, I look at the history of Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, all the things that are coming out. These are years upon years upon years of structural inequities and racist policies, not by only individuals, but by institutions that limited the capacity of a people, of a community to grow and fully enjoy American freedom, democracy, and opportunity, right? So this movement is specifically to that part of people. Now, America has more to deal with on this. Clearly, the Native question, there are other issues, right? I'm going to Alaska, clearly, we know that's a big issue, but across the country it's an issue. So, but I do think Black Lives Matter is a very specific, because the Black-white issue in America and slavery as an institution was largely Africans. I mean, I know that there are other indentured servants from the Irish and whatnot, and natives weren't really used as slave. We're not enslaved the same way. So it's a lot, but I do think it's a moment to learn history, Randy, and to not only learn it from one side. And once you start getting that other side, hopefully it does help you understand and be more inclusive.
Do you want to hear from other artists, from leaders in the field of commerce or entertainment or religion or politics? Do you want people to stand up and say that they're, you know, all about Black Lives Matter? They want to stand and have their voice be recognized?
Yeah.
Or does that just feel like hot air to you?
I think it's hot air if it's not actionable. Like, I love that the monuments, Confederate monuments, I'm actually a huge fan that are coming down because, I mean, you know, I feel like they honor a past that does not represent all of our citizens well. I'm not saying in museums as relics of our past, but should they be the things that dominate a space, a shared space that we're trying to create for all people? I mean, but you know, that's a tough concept. But I think we have to move beyond lip service. You know, if I'm looking at a community that's been historically underinvested in, right, then a statement is great, but we're going to have to do something beyond the statement if we don't want to be in the same place perpetually. So some reparative measures are definitely in order. You know, if we know that people have historically not invested in communities of color, then we should start to invest aggressively in communities of color, you know? I think Robert Smith is a big leader in that right now. He's a black, this African-American male businessman, very successful, and he's starting to get banks to invest in community-owned banks or in black communities and brown communities across the country. So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts, because then the culture has a chance to exist and thrive, to just be on the fringe.
Right. Let me ask you this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong on this.
Yeah.
The average, like, let's take Anchorage, Alaska, which has an extremely fantastic music program in the public schools.
Okay.
The average musician who makes it into a professional symphony not only studied their instrument from their middle school and high school band director, but received a lot of private lessons and mentorship from some fabulous person. Those things are very expensive.
Very.
Is it in neighborhoods of color where there might be a great interest in music, but just not the resources to help a young student get to
train
level? So would it be the sort of thing? I mean, you know, symphony orchestras across America are largely white. You know, the Anchorage Symphony itself has one of the most racially mixed symphony orchestras in America. African Americans, Native Alaskans, Samoans, and on and on. We have an all-female trombone section, the only one in
That's crazy. I love it.
uh, is it about access to that higher level of mentorship and instruction? And then at the end of the day, is it just about finding the funding to bridge that gap?
Well, I think that, let me tell you what I'm interested in right now. To answer your question and kind of support it. So we're doing this initiative in Washington, D.C., where it's about how do we strengthen organizations of color. So there's a difference between historically white organizations diversifying their efforts, creating mentorship opportunities for diversifying their structure from within so that their environment is more inclusive, their orchestras are more diverse, if that's what they desire, right? Or if they want to look more like America, so they should take those steps. But then there's also an issue of what do artists of color, as we create, what organizations do we want to create? And what type of training do we think we want to reflect? So there is a percentage of the community of African Americans that will probably, there are Black orchestras, there are Black violinists, cellists, that would want that to happen. There's a sector of society that will do that, and I think that should thrive. But we can't just say that it's just, there has to be a natural interest in the form. And it's up to the art form to present itself and then let it come naturally from the community versus saying that all people should just learn this music. Right? It should be.
Yeah, it's exposure first and then measuring the interest. We have bubbling and what can we do from that point?
But not imposing.
Not imposing. Yeah.
Right? So I would say that it would have to equally be, it would just be about access and choices. So let's not just superimpose European classical forms upon the culture. Let's provide access to that training and opportunity along with indigenous American forms that need, and then let the people choose. But right now, the opportunities are so limited that the choices are limited as well.
That's right.
I'd love for a young child of community of color to just be able to choose what he or she loves,
and
pursues it. Versus
find their passion.
Yeah, versus that the symphony just has a lot of money and they're able to bring training, and so therefore all of a sudden we have this. It's a fine line. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but
no, I think you are. God, I wish we had a lot of money.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. But so I guess what I'm hearing you say is it's about exposure, and then as the interest bubbles, crafting a bridge toward that opportunity.
Right. I mean, we have to market and promote, we have to expand our audiences and that's our job as artists. Like when I started Step Afrika, most white Americans did not even know what stepping was.
I didn't.
And if you didn't know about it, you definitely couldn't care about it. You couldn't support it. You couldn't go see it. You don't know about it, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't have the money to impose the tradition on the culture, like stepping, right? But through presenting the work and doing this over and over and informing others, and there's some people who naturally gravitated and want to support Step Afrika and want to see it of all backgrounds. They were able to choose and come to see me. I think that's a very American way to do this. You want the right to choose and come to these experiences versus being imposed, and I think it kind of works somewhere in cultural forms too. I just feel like because other forms are better funded, they're better suited to position themselves in community versus, and I don't know, it's a tough question.
It is. Talking about positioning, dream scenario, it's 20 years from now, and Step is what? What's your dream for the company?
Man, look, I've exceeded so many of my dreams with this company already.
God bless. That's wonderful.
I mean, we had a chance to perform in the White House for Obama.
Wow.
That was a big goal.
Sure.
Anybody else I'm really pressed about performing for at this point?
I'm downhill from that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm good. I just feel like but you know what? I would say that I value performing for the people of any community, for the people of Anchorage, as much as I do Obama. So there's just no, but there are no
That's
targets.
clear.
Oh, if I could just do this. No, I just want to.
No, I understand.
You know.
And I must tell you, Brian, that
serving
that's one thing
celebrity.
about your company. They bring it. Whether it's a school concert at 9 a.m. in the morning or
No.
a house of subscribers, they bring it, and that's a tribute to you.
Yeah, I don't care who's paying, who's not. Every time we hit the stage for any community, I don't care if we're in a rural village with, they pull out a bunch of planks for us to perform on. You know, I want to give, I view that show like I'm viewing, like I'm at the Kennedy Center, or like I'm on stage with the ASO, you know? Every time we hit the stage is important to me. So as long as we're doing that, I'm happy.
Great. Listen, my friend, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And let's find a minute this summer while we're hunkered in to plan our next project and our next project.
Hey man, we still just got to maximize what we've done.
Yeah.
More people need to witness it. Maybe we should do a filmed version.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Maybe that's what we should do. Heck yeah.
That'd be
just,
awesome. Maybe
forget the whole touring thing.
Movement or something.
Let's just make it on film.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Then it's preserved. Give my love to Jakari. Say hello to anybody in the company that might remember me. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yes. Love to your wife and your daughter.
And to your family as well.
All right.
Talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, take care. Be well, Randall.
All the best.